Welcome to the Glass Half Full podcast, a podcast where we celebrate entrepreneurs who have managed to create their own opportunities. And we evaluate their mindset. Do they see the glass half empty or half full? Let's find out. Today we're joined by Aurelie. She is an online entrepreneur and a remote work advocate. She says the world is her office. So let's find out a little bit more about her. Aurelie, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit better?
So where to start and how much time do I have? So I actually don't have a job title because I would say I'm what typically you would call a slash gen representative because I'm doing a lot of different things. It's as if I have different lives in my life with the job that I'm doing. So I work in travel in the mostly the business travel industry, and I have a passion for travel technology and for innovation. So one part of my activity is as a consultant. So I'm going to help travel suppliers out there, can be airlines, travel agencies, hotels, IT providers, with their marketing strategy, engagement, products as well when it comes to innovation and tech. And on the other hand, I'm working with the population of procurement managers and travel managers within companies who are in charge of business travel and expense activities.
Wow.
And the other part that gets me to travel a lot is that I'm running events. So I'm a public speaker. Obviously, last year has been a bit different because a lot has been pivoted virtually. But I run all sorts of events and a public speaker myself.
Wow. Yes, that's a lot. No title, but that's definitely sounds like a fun job or jobs. So we'll start off with what we call fire questions, just to kind of get to know you a little bit better in terms of outside of what you do. So one
Sounds
of the
good.
first things I'd like to know, since it sounds like you travel a lot, what country are you in right now?
Right now, I'm in Dubai.
Dubai.
I'm on what I call my lockdown escape.
Had you been there before prior to this time?
Yes, it's my third time in Dubai. And fun story is I was initially here to visit friends who live there. They're expats. They work here in October, and I arrived. And a few days later, France announced the second lockdown. And I decided simply just not to fly back and just to make Dubai my temporary office for now.
And I think that's would be my next question. What would be Dubai is your favorite now, but is there another country that you would consider your favorite to work remote from?
I absolutely love Colombia. I fell in love with that country 3 years ago, the first time I've been there. And last year, I also worked from Guatemala, and it was an awesome surprise. I really, really love Guatemala. It's a good combo of nature, very nice culture, great vibes, food. I really like that.
Yeah, that's one of the blogs that I saw that I was just in love with. And one of my favorite footage is the roosters on your bed. I think it was roosters or chicken that you like
Yes,
captured. I thought, oh my goodness, that's what she wakes up to, or that's what she has. That's if that's the worst that can happen, that's amazing. So I
yes.
really did
You
like
always
that.
you always have surprises happening on your trips.
So you said nature. I was like, yeah, that's part of it for sure. A couple
Exactly.
of more questions. Who are the top three people you love to invite around dinner?
Ooh, that's a good one. So
Hmm.
I actually love people who are very different from me. So we can have interesting conversations and sometimes very intense debates. So I don't have any like specific name in mind, but it would be obviously people who are curious, open-minded, but with strong opinions. This is really something I like.
All right. One more. What one thing out of your bucket list that you are still left to check off?
Um, One thing I would love to do. I'm a scuba diver, and one day I want to actually dive in Australia, in the Coral Reef. And
Wow.
the day I'm gonna do that, it's definitely gonna be a bucket list item.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I also noticed you were in Belize And you did
Yes,
scuba dive there, right? Is that
yes.
was that part of your bucket list prior to
It
being there?
was, it
Okay.
was, it was, it was amazing. And flying over the Great Blue Hole as well was one. So
That looks
I'm
amazing.
a lot of my bucket list includes involve travel, obviously, but it's starting. I'm starting to check the boxes little by little.
All right. So Australia, well, I'll look out for that blog because I know that that's when you checked off that one. So I'm excited for you. So let's talk a little bit more now about Mission Nomad. This is one thing I noticed. But before we begin talking about it, tell us a little bit of how your travel bug began. That's what I'm really interested in. When did this begin?
So when I was very young, so again, interesting facts. My parents don't have a passport, so they have actually never been on a plane. They travel by rail, they take the car, but I'm French and they mostly stay in Europe.
Wow.
So I have no idea because I'm so different from my family, like so different. I'm an alien.
Oh my
And
goodness.
since I'm very young, I've always been fascinated by other cultures. I remember as a young kid, I had a world map in my room. I wanted to learn where all the countries are. I developed an interest in learning foreign languages. So I speak German, I speak Spanish as well. And I've always been fascinated. When I was young, I used to work during the summer to actually be able to afford, a week holidays or just to go away. So I'd say it started even when I was 10-ish, around that period.
Wow.
Yeah. And
The fun fact about your parents, that's pretty amazing.
yeah, I have no idea what I'm doing in that family.
Here I imagine you were going to say, oh, I've been traveling with my parents since I was young, traveling the world, but it wasn't that way. So
Not
have
really.
you ever had an office job? That's a good question that I'd like to know in terms of what
Actually,
you do.
yes.
Okay. So tell us a little
I
about
have
that.
my career has always been in travel. Actually, it was I'm somebody who's driven by passion. So I love technology innovation. I love travel. So I decided to combine both, basically.
Mhm.
And my very first jobs were for a business travel agency, and then I worked for Amex back then in the Paris office. So it was a very traditional office job, and it got me a bit frustrated because my job didn't really allow me to travel a lot,
Mhm.
and work from home was kind of a thing, but not really. And I felt like as well I was a bit stuck, between four walls,
Mhm.
and I
Mhm.
couldn't thrive in my job.
Wow.
It was a bit of a challenge.
Which brings us to Mission Nomad. You have managed to combine both. So let's talk about that because like I mentioned earlier, I'm so excited to learn more about you. I'm in that position where you were many years ago, where it's like, it, I would love to do, I kind of joke around with friends that I admire. And at this point, I admire you and what you do. So I'm going to say,
Ah,
I
thanks.
want to be like you when I grow up. That's what I like to tell people. I want to be like you when I grow up. So please tell us about Mission Nomad.
So, why this began? It's basically it was a bit before the pandemic, obviously, but I've been living that lifestyle and choosing that lifestyle. It's been 6 years now, and I mean, I work in travel and mostly business travel, and I've been trying to engage the community in the business travel around. Travel patterns are going to change. People want more and more to combine a business trip with some leisure aspects, or they want to travel for a longer period because it's an opportunity. When you travel for work, it's an opportunity to see the world. It does play a big role in, will I accept that job as an employee because I do want to, roam around, I want to see the world, I want to travel. And the message was being heard, but without having that impact that it has today, I would say. because this is one of the very few things I will say thank you to because of COVID, is the awareness that has been, like driven around flexibility needed in the workplace, because work is actually not a place. And I started to capture the very first episode of Mission Nomad last year, so before the pandemic, very beginning of 2020, because I wanted to spark conversation, around that work life. I started to get more and more questions, mostly from, from younger newly graduates, people who wanted to create a job like that. Like, how did you do? How can I make this happen? What would be your advice? And I'm fascinated by the work that I can see from travel bloggers, for example, or lifestyle bloggers, but their job is very different. I actually work, I run projects, I'm a consultant while I'm traveling. And I thought it would be nice to show what it's like to travel for work, but also enjoy my destination at the same time. And this is why I launched Mission Nomad. It's like a movement. It's aimed at being a movement that people relate to, because when they read the blogs or when they watch the videos, I want people to feel like they're like traveling with me. I want people to feel like, oh, this is the workplaces she finds, this is how she does it, this is the experience, rather than having something very polished, very perfect, and a lovely experience, but that doesn't really, show the reality and the daily life. So I launched Mission Nomad because of that. I really wanted to spark conversation, to inspire people, to show that yes, it is possible, and also to spark conversation within the workplace. Employers, companies, who all of them, mostly US driven, there have been amazing announcements from big companies. Twitter is clearly leading the way out there, about offering that flexibility to employees. And I thought the momentum was right. So we cannot really travel safely right now, but I thought the momentum is here to start a conversation.
It is. It is. And sign me up. Sign me up. Nomad club, whatever it is, I am there. It's something that I actually have been thinking about because of what happened in 2020, because of COVID. I work for an organization that is now remote first. And so that's the idea. Okay, well, now I'm able to have the flexibility, but I can't travel, right? So it's almost like I'm stuck now. But soon as things start opening up, I hope to follow your
Absolutely.
steps to be able to.
And I think one important thing to say as well is that for a lot of people, I have a lot of conversations, and some people are really, really looking forward to returning to the office. And I do get it, because I think one important thing to say is that this is not work from home. This is work from home induced by a pandemic, where you have zero flexibility because you need to stay at home. So remote work, even, it can have a lot of definitions. It can be being a full nomad, full time, and spend time abroad, months, weeks, wherever, or work from home, or sometimes, like I said, go on business trips, or just decide to go work somewhere else for a few months. But right now, what everybody's experiencing doesn't really give justice to remote work.
Right. So what would you say is your opinion in remote work within the next 5 years? Can you see a lot of more people living your type of work and doing that?
So I honestly believe this is the future of work. And I mean, we see signs on the market, right? It's also it became some sort of a savings aspect as well for companies. They are ditching their office, or they're reducing the sites. The sites, so it's a real estate thing as well. And maybe offices become more of hubs when you do need to meet in person, because meeting in person does matter. This is how you get creativity done. This is how you build, this is how you build your company culture. This is how you keep it alive. So it will still be something very important. But to me, flexibility is going to become mainstream. And I mean, it does not make sense for most jobs. Again, there are some jobs where it doesn't apply, but for most jobs, what difference does it make if I sit in an office chair from 9 to 5, or if I work in a cafe, or in Dubai, or in Singapore, or in New York?
Mhm.
Um, Even like my home, like is Paris, but my clients, like 95% of my clients are not French.
Mhm.
So to me, except navigating time zones, like I do right now in Dubai, you had to wake up early for me. And this is, I would say, this is the only challenge, but it doesn't make any difference for my clients in terms of work that I deliver. So I think this is the future. And it applies for every sector, because so far it's mostly new age companies or IT companies, but there have been massive announcements coming from pharmaceutical companies, from automobile sector. So it is becoming a big thing everywhere.
Right. I know a couple of teachers in my life who have traveled, who decided to go, somewhere else during this time. And they're teaching as just like you from a different country, but the students are here in the United States. But that's
Yeah.
because of the remote life that they're living now. So I agree with you. I think it's something that is going to be more normal for everyone. And like I said, sign me up. I want to start. I
but
think.
but I often hear, oh yes, but it's because you're young, and I agree this, but I don't think it's the only market. I've been having lots of conversation, even with people who have kids. You've just mentioned online education. Once online education is going to be accessible more easily, this is also going to be a thing for people with kids. If
Mhm.
they do want to travel around and spend a few months in ABC destination. And the third market is for people who have kids, but their kids are already independent. So they're
Mhm.
actually free to know, as a couple or even solo, go see the world and live their experiences as nomads. So it's going to, I reckon the phenomenon is going to become bigger.
That's great. I'd like to talk to you about your tech travel industry. That's what you work in.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit more about what that is and that you do.
So here as well, it's been very interesting because there's a lot of innovation happening in that space, driven by, it can be artificial intelligence, it can be technologies such as blockchain. There's a lot going on. And what's fascinating right now is the influence that the consumer world has been having on the business world, B2B world.
Mhm.
Like, before being employees, before being business travelers, we're all consumers, we're all leisure travelers, and this has a massive impact on the way that we expect our companies, to deliver uh, tools to us, or processes, or even freedom in terms of company culture. So that's what I'm trying to, to support my clients with, like how to bridge that gap, and how to build great user experiences when it comes to booking trips on B2B tools. How can you make it sexy? And how can you get your employees to actually adopt your tools, because everybody's used to, I don't know, Kayak, Expedia, all those brands that we all love, that we have affinity for. So it involves, a lot of different things. It's come to generation as well. The influence coming from, like, millennials, Gen Z. It's pretty fascinating how we behave and what our expectations are, and how the adoption is amongst different generations. We tend to confront them, but it's not necessarily about confronting them. It's really about getting everybody around the table, and making sure that we're all on the same page
Mhm.
and learning from each other.
Yeah,
So that's a very interesting area to work in right now.
absolutely.
And we talk a lot about business travel struggling a bit to attract talent, because it's not a sector that looks sexy on the paper. But actually, if you love tech, it is. You know, I've mentioned, for example, artificial intelligence and things like that. Where when it becomes interesting is that business travelers are frequent travelers. So this is where it becomes interesting when you think about data analytics, analyzing patterns, personas, you know, everything related to automation. Because the more volume you have, the more frequently you travel, the more interesting it becomes then to build applications on the top of it. Even mobile, it's important in our consumer life. It's even more important as business traveler. So I think as an industry, we haven't really made a good job in becoming attractive to talents.
Yeah. No, well said. Who are your favorite, I guess, companies you worked with? What have you actually done, if you're able to talk about that? What have you, your favorite
Sure.
company, and what you've done for them?
So there's one project I've done last year that was super exciting, and this is also why I don't have a job title. So uh, they're they're um, um, they work in fintech, and they had just released an app. It's B2B, but it's so basically you could generate virtual cards to pay using Apple Pay
Mhm.
or Google Pay. And instead of having a business card, like a plastic business card, and they called me and they told me, well, we'd like to advertise that product, but you know, payments isn't really sexy. I know it's the third time I throw the word sexy in that conversation.
It's okay. You're in Dubai.
uh,
I think that is
yeah,
the
it's true. And they said, look, we want to launch a great campaign, something engaging, and we want this to be focused on experience. So I told them, well, look, give me 1 or 2 days. I'm going to think about it, and we're going to come up with something. And we decided to launch a campaign that we actually called Mission Cashless,
Mhm.
and it was a series of vlogs like me traveling around in the most popular business travel destinations. So I've been to Chicago in the US in that sense, and assessing like the cashless readiness of every destination. And
Mhm.
my mission was, I was trying to pay for every single expense only using my Apple Watch or my iPhone.
Mhm.
And so it was super interesting because I actually shared my experience as a traveler, my experience as a travel tech geek, like having pretty high expectations in terms of tools that I'm using
Mhm.
while running a marketing campaign, not necessarily promoting the product in a super commercial way. It was subtle because tech to me is an enabler. And if you show what it does, if you show the user experience and how easy your life is thanks to that, then it's self-explanatory. It tells the product by itself. So
Yes.
I've traveled to Paris, to London, I've been to Germany that has a cash love reputation, and I've captured all of that, and I rated every destination. I've been to Amazon Go, for example, in Chicago, which is amazing, completely transparent payments. So this was a project I really enjoyed doing. So it can be super creative. So we launched 6 vlogs, and in marketing you can be creative, and this also got me to travel. So this is how I combined, you know, like my passion for travel and my job. uh, Other than this, I also really enjoy delivering keynotes or facilitating panels, because every conference is different. And one that I absolutely loved was already a few years ago. I was in charge of um, conveying the message of like what are our expectations, you know, as millennials in terms of digital transformation. And I was opening a 2-day seminar for airline executives. And the airline industry is going through a massive digital transformation right now. And my client told me, you need to be a bit provocative, but in a fun way. So I really did me. I gave it a thought, and I delivered a 20-minute keynote, like it was the millennial guide. And I was on stage with a poo emoji and with a heart emoji. And all the time I told people, so how to get more hearts and do less bullshit. So it was done in a very, very, engaging and fun way. And people still, when they see me, in conferences, they still, oh, you're the emoji girl. So that's actually makes it very fun.
That's
So
fun.
I'm lucky to be able to be very creative in my job. So that's really nice.
No, and I think I saw that blog that you're talking about, and I was actually wanting to know what more about that app because you did an amazing job showcasing it, like you said, just very subtle, how much we are already used to something like that, paying for,
Mm.
like coffee on our phone or even going. So it becomes easier when you're traveling to be able to not carry, your cards with you or
Oh,
for
yeah, it's
work
like
cards.
in Dubai. So I'm here since 2 months and a half. I never used cash ever. I'm using Apple Pay all the time. So it's really nice. Yeah, especially when you travel, you don't need to go to an ATM. It's a different currency. It's always a hassle.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, definitely, it's good.
Yeah, no, I did actually really enjoy that. But I also noticed, right? You were actually in Paris in one of those cafes, and you said, "Oh, they don't accept it here." So
Yeah.
that's the one thing that I think the world still needs to kind of catch up to that because you'll find places where it's only cash or that,
Yes.
and so I myself not quite used to the whole tech world yet. I still carry cash, but yes, it's become easier for me to use Venmo or pay, Apple Pay and stuff like that. But I think what you showcase in that vlog is that that's the world we're going to be going into, hopefully, right? Especially for businesses. I remember
Yeah.
traveling for work and having to keep receipts. So I saw how you took a picture with that
Exactly.
app, and it just kept things, perfect, for I guess auditing purposes. So that was,
Exactly.
yeah, that was
Yeah,
fun. You did good.
it's exciting. Yeah, like I say, it's to my point on business travel is not considered as very attractive, but it's actually very interesting when you see, what powers the tech power, the all the tools, all the innovation happening in that sector. It's a very exciting sector to work in.
Yes. So let's talk about, and this is something I noticed as well as I've been following you on your Instagram, is balance.
Yeah,
Balance, right? I think you have this down perfect. You have the work, you have the play, is how you say it.
yeah,
And I think that's the difficult thing for someone like myself who's not used to that, who wants to, again, be like you when I grew up. How do you manage that? How do you make sure there's that work balance?
yeah. So it's, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Depending on where you are, it's sometimes very tempting, to just go out there and enjoy. Especially when I was in Latin America. Well, today, like January 2021, it's still in Dubai. There are less backpackers, or it's a bit less lively than it used to be, right? But last year, typically, you meet a lot of people, and they're not necessarily working because they're traveling around. So they always tell you, "Oh, come, we're gonna do this and that," and so oh no. So the golden rule is to really be super thorough on your schedule.
Mhm.
So I'm a consultant, so I'm project based. So I'm always very mindful of what do I need to deliver, when's my deadline.
Mhm.
And I mean, my client doesn't care whether if I work at night, in the morning, whatever, as long as the work is delivered. So that's a great set in the work that I'm delivering. But then you also might have weekly calls or whatsoever. So I always navigate around that. But you need to set a very clear work schedule and stick to it.
Mhm.
It's very important. And then there's the carrots, once
Mhm.
you get this done, it's like a threshold, it's a milestone. Once I get this done, I can really enjoy.
Got it.
Um, and I'll be very honest. So my pace is like usually in winter, like in our European winter, the cold winter, I tend to fly away and I go to a warm destination. And because I value that so much, I try not to work full time in those 2 months, so I can enjoy even more. When I do work full time, this is how I balance. Sometimes I work very late because I know in the day after I'm going to be able to go like here in the desert and have my desert safari, for example. But yeah, it can be very tempting. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's very important to do your job and to deliver quality work.
Yeah.
And whether you want it or not, you'll have that on your shoulders, and you need to do it.
And
Um,
figure out a way, right?
yeah. What helps as well is if you manage to find fellow nomads, or if you go to co-work spaces, because everybody's kind of the same mood, and it puts you in the right energy, in the right in the right mood to get things done.
Yes, actually, I did notice that in your vlogs. I mean, I know of those places here in the United States. I just didn't know how popular they would be, like in Costa Rica, Guatemala, where you went, and how they look so cute. Like this amazing work setup where you said, "This is my office for the day,"
Yeah,
and that's what you're talking about, right? Where other people are doing the
exactly.
same thing. Wow.
So what really helps me, especially, and what a tip to like avoid being too frustrated. If you don't have too much in-depth work, sometimes it's also nice to go. Like in Dubai, I have an amazing spot just by the beach. So I can see the beach all day. I have good Wi-Fi. I order my food and I sort of enjoy. So it's a good compromise because you're not stuck between four walls the entire day.
Mhm.
And changing your workplaces also helps. Sometimes it's a cafe, sometimes it's a proper co-work space, sometimes it's in my own place because I need to really be in tunnel mode. Or if I have conference calls, because I also speak quite loud, so people around me really don't want to hear me for an entire day. So, but this is also what maintains a good pace and what keeps a good level of energy.
Got it. That makes sense. I'm definitely going to try it. But again, I think that's one of the things that we've been faced because of COVID. Those that were not used to working from home
Yes,
is definitely, finding that balance
but
from going to bed to, the desk.
yes.
So tell me a little bit about any challenges you've encountered during COVID. You've been doing this, for many years, so I can imagine it's a little easier for you. But I did notice
So
you've also encountered what most of us, or at least I speak for myself, that I guess in a sense, health and mental health, and knowing,
absolutely.
now you're not interacting with everyone at work in the office. You're now in an office, or at home, or in your case, by the ocean. But is there any challenges you've encountered during COVID?
Definitely. So, I mean, it's been 6 years. I don't have an office, and I'm with our model. So I'm a consultant, but we're actually a company, but we're all like, we have a model of like a sharing economy of brains. So we're not employees, we're contractors. So we're super free. And we had, I think we haven't spoken that much, even as a remote team, and we've managed to create that sense of community that became even stronger within my team. But it's something different from not having an office and being used to working from home or remotely, and actually being literally stuck between four walls because it's a pandemic and you have nowhere to go. You have zero freedom. You cannot go in a cafe. You cannot do anything. So to me, I think it was a huge challenge, a really, really big challenge, because out of a sudden, I'm an extrovert and I get my energy when I'm surrounded by people. I thrive by my social exchanges, I would say. And this disappeared entirely. I don't mind working from home or remotely or being in my bubble for a few days, but with my job, I was always traveling around or doing things or running events or in touch with people running projects, and all of this disappeared. So I would say it was no different from me than from anyone else who doesn't have that crazy life and that crazy pace as mine. Yes, mental health has been a big issue. So I work out a lot. So this is one of my passion. And
Mhm.
when gyms closed, it actually killed my mental health. because I didn't have, again, I get my energy from my HIIT classes, from my group classes, because I get that group effect. And this was gone as well. So it was tough. Yeah, really, really tough.
Definitely. Yes.
Like, mm,
I did notice though, you found a couple of outdoor gym, right? In Colombia, I think it was Colombia where they had them in the roof. I mean,
yes.
that's the type of gym I want. I don't have to go to the indoor gyms anymore if I find those. How are those?
Yeah, that was really nice. That
Yeah.
was really nice. I don't know if they kept them open though right now because of COVID, but that was really nice. And this is also why it's nice, especially if you like, fresh air and working out. In some destinations, you have amazing opportunities. I mean, I hiked a volcano, Costa Rica, in Guatemala, and Costa Rica offers amazing things. This is the type of balance we're just mentioning. Yeah.
You're able to do both, right? So now let's get down to talking to our listeners again that are listening to this and saying, I want to be able to do this. What would be part of the advice for them and myself that are telling you, I want to be able to do this? So someone that's looking into getting into this, what kind of advice would you give them?
So I would say the very first question is if you're an employee or if you're like more independent. One question as I very, very often get is, but this is really more for independents. So it's actually starting to change. Like I've mentioned earlier, many companies have announced that they're becoming really open now as a remote first or more flexible workplace. So I would say this is one of the first condition to make that happen, right? Then it's also how I would say adventurous are you? What would be a good fit for you in terms of where would you want to get started? How many languages do you speak? Would you feel comfortable in a country if you don't necessarily speak the language? What type of vibes do you want to be surrounded with? I mean, I'm a Latin girl at heart, so I absolutely love that. But some people might absolutely love Asia or whatever. So this would help as well to like sort of pick a destination. But also practical consideration, like depending on where your colleagues or clients or whatever work you're running, they are in terms of time zones, because this is also something you need to bear in mind. I mean, here I'm in Dubai. Sometimes I work with Pacific Coast. There are 12 hours like we have right now between you and me. So this is also a consideration. How flexible are you with delivering work? But also, what's your budget? What can you afford? Do you want your own place? I would strongly recommend to start slow travel. Stick to a place for a couple of months, because when you work, especially full time, you won't necessarily have all the flexibility because you are not on holidays, you're working. So slow travel is perfect because you get to know fellow nomads, but you also get to bond with locals. So this is how you really get into local culture and you experience it with more of a local eyes versus being a tourist. And, I'll be very honest, working from a beach, this does not exist like on the sand. Well, A, you don't see anything on your screen, and B, this is just on Instagram, some posts, just for the sake of it. So definitely this, it just requires some just common sense, like what's your budget? Can you afford your own place? Would you rather go for co-living? Do you want to have roommates? And just make sure that you can deliver your work and that you are in the right work environment to do it.
Great. Thank you. I'm writing these down. Well, actually, I'm recording this, so I'm going to read because I definitely want to start. How do you decide the places that you go to? I mean, do you plan, right now you're in Dubai, what would be your next country? And do you plan the next, place I'm going to stay there for 2 weeks? How does all that work for you?
So I first look at destinations I'm attracted to. And then, like I said, what really matters to me, especially Guatemala, I pick accommodation where I know I have good Wi-Fi. I investigate in advance. So I'm in touch. There are Facebook groups of digital nomads. I ask for advice. I ask people who do know, people who are there, to share tips with me. And this is what's beautiful with this travel, work and travel community. People really help each other. This is also how you can start to meet people virtually, then you catch up with them in real life. It's the first opportunity to socialize, because loneliness is a topic that is often tackled when you're doing such work. And then sometimes I just wing it. Like last year I've been to Tulum, Mexico. Wasn't the plan at all. I met people. They were traveling for an entire year. We clicked, we started to discuss, and they just made me want to go there. So I just made it happen.
Is that when you took that little small airplane from?
Yes, exactly. The tiny airplane with 9 seats or whatever. Yes, I was. Yes, it was amazing. It was amazing. Exactly.
You look very happy, and I was like, I want to do that. I think you were the only one, right? Were you the only passenger?
Yes. It was amazing.
Yeah. and so you didn't plan it, as you mentioned. It just happened. You just said, I'm just.
Yeah, exactly. Because you meet people, and then they tell you about their own travel experience and say, that sounds good. I want to go there. Okay. So there's always some sort of I plan because I'm attracted to the destination and I want to visit it. But then you also hear from fellow travelers. So it's always a combo of both. But I'm always very mindful of the accommodation, or I make sure I have a proper co-work space or whatever, where when I need a strong internet connection, I can do this without hassling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think one of the questions that I definitely would like to know in terms of Mission Nomad, what is your goal, in terms of the next couple of years with Mission Nomad?
So it's interesting because I said many people call this a movement. And I'm very, very happy it comes across that way, because this was exactly my thinking when I decided to launch it. This is why I wanted a name. And I didn't want to have my name in it, because it's not about me. It's about empowering people. So I would be even super happy if, even people get inspired, start to share their own experiences, use this as a way to get empowered, spark conversation within their own communities, with their employers. Go bigger, build communities of nomads, nomad workers, corporate nomads. Because my pain point when I'm on those trips, and I've noticed there's no proper website, blogs, or whatsoever where you can easily find information. There is no to-do list. There is no proper guide. And I think if one thing I would love to achieve is maybe this, but purely crowdsourced by everybody, adding their 2 cents, helping build this as a community, and why not, getting this bigger, becoming like a website and a community of fellow nomads.
Yes. And I'm excited for that, because as you just mentioned, I don't know where these websites of these fellow nomads can tell you where the good Wi-Fi is, all these recommendations. That would be, I think, ideal for someone like myself who wants to start off, to know where to go. So that would be perfect. A website.
So that's in my mind. So far it's still a bit small, because I started it in the midst of a pandemic, right? So you cannot really have a lot of content. But well, for listeners, whoever is interested, I'm super open to suggestion, and I'm very open to make this crowdsourced, and to use other people's brain and other people's takes and experiences. This is what makes a project interesting.
Tell our listeners where they can find you, so we can make sure that we click on all your social media and website.
You can basically find me everywhere. So you just use my name, Aurélie Krau. I have my YouTube channel that's starting. It's taking off. It's good. Get a start somewhere. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on aureliekrau.com, on Twitter, Facebook. Well, just Google my name and I'll pop in somewhere. Pretty easy to find.
Good. And last but not least, our podcast is called the Glass Half Full podcast.
Yes.
And so I'd like to kind of get your take on basically, do you see the glass half full or half empty?
Definitely now half full. If you had asked me that question probably 2 years ago, I would have said half empty because there was still a lot of things to tackle. And like I said before, probably thank you, COVID, for raising awareness around that.
Yes, I think that is a good way of finishing this. Thank you, COVID. I think it has begun
Yeah.
a new movement, Mission Nomad. I'm, more than glad to follow, and I know our listeners are going to be excited to also follow. Thank you so much for taking your time.
Thank you.
I know you're a busy woman, and you took this time to be with us today. So I really appreciate it, and I had so much
Great
fun.
pleasure.
I had so much knowing a little bit more about you. I'll continue to follow, as I mentioned. Sign me up. I am Mission Nomad Fellow, or however you want to.
Perfect. Super.
Thank you so much. You have a good rest of your night, right? Is that?
Thank you, and you rest of your day. It was a pleasure to join. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.